Hi guys, so I created a lesson plan on box plots, which is a way of displaying the distribution of data based on the 5-number summary, which includes the minimum and maximum numbers, the median value, and the first and third quartile values. So for this lesson plan, the learning objective is that when provided with a collected set of data, students will build upon their knowledge of the median value to include minimums, maximums, and quartiles in order to apply this to constructing and analyzing box plots. In terms of the language demands, during the beginning and end of the lesson, all students will demonstrate appropriate reading and writing skills. During the whole class instruction, students are required to use their listening skills and record information on their own. Students will also demonstrate their speaking skills when working in cooperative learning groups. The key vocabulary for this lesson plan includes a box plot, which is a standardized way of displaying the distribution of data based on the 5-number summary, the median, which is the value lying at the midpoint of a frequency distribution of data, the minimum and maximum, which includes the smallest and the largest value of a data set, the first quartile, which is the median of the lower half of the data set, and the third quartile, which is the median of the upper half of the data set, and the interquartile range, which is the middle 50% between the two quartiles. I've included a list of resources that I've used to create this lesson, and they include previous New York State Regents exams and various online box plot examples. As for the required materials, they include a smartboard, graphing calculators, and all of the pre-made activities. Students should model the required prior knowledge and skills, which includes understanding the meaning of the median value and being able to identify the minimum and maximum numbers in a set of data. Students should also demonstrate all of the standards for mathematical practice in the Common Core state standards. Now for the lesson procedure itself. For the first 5 minutes of class, I will begin the lesson with a pre-assessment in the form of a KWL chart. This assignment will include the key vocabulary terms that I previously defined, and students will write what they already know about their meanings and what they want to know about them. The KWL chart allows me to assess student knowledge prior to introducing a new topic. This activity encourages students to activate their background knowledge and demonstrates how they are able to make connections between old and new topics. Encouraging students to create questions of their own understanding in the what section will instill a purpose for this lesson because they will be expected to complete the learned portion of the KWL chart for homework. Following the pre-assessment, I will spend 15 minutes on a whole class introduction to the new material. I will introduce new information to students by informing them of the definition of a box plot and what they are used for. I will also demonstrate step-by-step procedures on how to construct a box plot and how to achieve the 5-number summary using a TI-84 calculator in order for students to achieve the necessary skills. Before moving on, I will give students the opportunity to practice an example taken directly from New York State Regents. Students will then spend 15 minutes working in collaborative learning groups of 3 students to complete an activity that consists of 3 examples. Each student will occupy a role to either enter the data in the calculator, record the 5-number summary, or draw the box plot. Students will rotate roles per problem to ensure that each student has successfully participated in practicing each component of the problem. The information that students obtained from the whole class instruction portion of the lesson will guide this practice, and each student will have the opportunity to practice their newly acquired skills. I will utilize this opportunity to circulate around the classroom while observing each group in order to provide questions that guide students who require assistance in order to encourage their thinking and problem-solving skills, and to conduct a formative assessment. I will end the lesson with a 10-minute summative assessment exit ticket activity that requires students to analyze and compare box plots. This assignment extends the ideas and concepts students learned and practiced throughout the lesson by requiring them to use their newly acquired knowledge when comparing box plots. This activity requires students to demonstrate their reading skills on box plots and put their analyzation into words. When students take state exams, they will be required to explain themselves in words, and this activity provides them with the opportunity to apply those writing skills mathematically. It also provides me with the opportunity to determine student learning. Should time permit, I would extend the lesson with multiple choice questions to ensure that students are able to read and analyze data represented using box plots. A specific extension activity that would accomplish this would include completing questions taken directly from a New York State Regents exam so that students receive adequate practice. It is also beneficial to expose students preparing for the New York State Regents to previous questions and the exact format of the exam so that they feel more comfortable and less intimidated going in to take the test themselves. For any student who did not meet learning objectives, I'll provide them with the opportunity to complete extra credit assignments. I've included accommodations that could be made for students with disabilities or for English language learners. While designing the lesson, I would familiarize myself with the IEP requirements of any students in the class with special needs so that I will be prepared to accommodate them. For example, if a student requires prompts to remain on task and focused, I'll be able to implement this throughout each task. For students who are visually impaired, I will want to be prepared with documents and presentations in larger fonts and/or Braille. If there are students with physical disabilities, I will organize the classroom accordingly so that they have easy and comfortable access to their desk and other classroom resources. I will also provide a behavioral intervention area of the classroom that will allow each student who feels overwhelmed or anxious to take a break at any point throughout. I've also included more general accommodations I could make for students with disabilities throughout each specific activity. During the introduction of the lesson, I can differentiate instruction to meet the needs of students with disabilities by repeating and/or elaborating on the assignment directions to ensure that they understand exactly what is expected of them. I could also provide an example to guide their thought and completion of the task. To be sure that the students with disabilities in the classroom are keeping up with the rest of the class, I will rotate around the classroom during my whole class introduction of the topic. For group work, I will construct groups according to skill level so that each contains students who will be able to help others when necessary, such as for students with special needs who may require extra assistance in completing the tasks required of each role. The end of the lesson activity can be altered to accommodate students with special needs by providing questions that will guide the student to discover their own answer. This could be done through the use of a graphic organizer that helps them put together their thoughts and ideas in order to successfully complete the task. For English language learners, before introducing the lesson, I will familiarize myself with the primary language and skill levels of any English language learners that will be in the classroom. From this, I will be able to access resources that can translate documents to their primary language when necessary. I could also access programs that read aloud to English language learners at a pace suitable for their understanding. I could also alter the individual assignments so that they are designed for language acquisition rather than being entirely content-based. Overall, this lesson plan utilizes complex instruction to allow for all students to benefit and learn mathematics in ways that work best for them. Students will work in groups and be assigned roles in order to complete a task as a team. This will ensure that all students will learn from asking good questions, rephrasing problems, explaining, using logic, justifying methods, using manipulatives, and through helping each other. So being that my lesson includes 2 assessments, I'm going to specifically address each one of those now. My first assessment will consist of constructing groups with a common goal and assigning each student a responsibility required to complete the task. Their learning will be assessed through monitoring their discussion and progress while observing each group toward their goal. A goal of this lesson is for students to build upon their knowledge of the median value to include minimums, maximums, and quartiles in order to apply this to construction of a box plot. This assignment requires that students find these numerical values from a given set of data and to draw a corresponding box plot. Each student will play a specific role in completing this process and rotate roles in order to ensure that all students receive practice of the various skills. This assessment provides evidence of student understanding because each student plays a specific role in completing a task. Students will first demonstrate their use of the calculator by entering the data values into the appropriate statistical feature. Students will then demonstrate their knowledge of the concepts by taking the values they gathered in order to identify and record what constitutes the 5-number summary. Lastly, students will demonstrate their skill in drawing a box plot on an appropriately scaled number line, including the correct numerical values. As I rotate around the classroom, I will provide students with constant feedback based on their progress and group participation. If students are making mistakes, I will guide them in identifying where they have missed something and encourage them to use fix-up strategies in order to prevent them from making the same mistakes during their future learning. For students who are successful, I will provide them with praise and encouragement as well as questions to guide their thinking and analyzation further. My second assessment will consist of assigning students an independent exit ticket activity that presents students with 3 different box plots that they are expected to analyze and compare based on the given data. Another learning objective of this lesson is for students to learn and understand how to read and analyze data presented in the form of a box plot. This assessment provides students with the background information on data in the form of 3 different box plots. Students are then expected to make meaning out of the information provided in the different box plots and to include justification. This assessment provides evidence of student understanding of the concepts outlined in the lesson because it requires that they read 3 different box plots and analyze the values and their connections to the provided background information. Students are to make connections between the different box plots and justify the comparisons they make between them in regards to test scores. This demonstrates their identification of the 5 number summary values and their application of meaning to these numbers in the appropriate context of the question. I will provide feedback to students by not only grading their assignments, but by providing written responses to their justifications. For students who seem to have not understood the material, I will provide them with questions that will guide them to the correct answer. For students who perform well, I will provide them feedback that encourages their use of supporting evidence to justify their answers. And that concludes my lesson plan on box plots. Thanks for listening.